You know what?
It can happen anywhere, in a park,
I'm being threatened by a man with a Rambo. Please send the cops immediately.
in your neighborhood.
I would love for you to call the sheriff's department.
I haven't seen you before. I simply asked you if you lived in the community.
And I told you I don't have to answer your question, and it's none of your business if I live here or not.
Or even at a South Florida pool.
I believe calling the police at that point was an act of violence against me and my son.
On social media, the culprit is jokingly referred to as Karen.
I have food I have to deliver to someone.
I don't want you here.
While these Karen posts may initially seem funny, in reality, they're very serious.
Go home, Karen.
With the potential for real danger or harm. Tonight, the realities of racism and confronting Karen. And welcome to NBC6 Voices on our Facebook and YouTube pages. I'm Jawan Strader. Please feel free to add your comments and questions to this discussion. We will try to get to them as best as we can. Well, tonight we're discussing the realities of racism. These days, that includes unexpected encounters with people who are quick to question, accuse, threaten, and in many cases, call the police on Black people. That person is often referred to as Karen on social media, and we're going to discuss why this is no laughing matter. Also, the definition of Karen. We're going to get a little bit more into that as well. Well, joining us for this all-important conversation this evening, G. Wright Muir. We just showed a little clip of her in that video you just saw right there. She is an attorney, law professor, and LGBTQ advocate. Also, Roz Joseph. You heard her voice. You didn't see her face. She was also in that opening clip as well. She is a senior project manager at a healthcare firm who was in that neighborhood that she was being questioned about. And Dr. Jeffrey Swain, he is no stranger. He's also been on Voices in the past as well. Very intelligent. Always love our conversations with Dr. Swain. He is the Dean of Campus Ministry at Florida Memorial University. Also, Dr. Swain is the author of 6 books, including Black and Still Here in a World of Color. His opinion column on issues of race, culture, and class and politics can oftentimes be seen in the South Florida Times. Welcome our panelists to this all-important conversation as far as confronting Karen. Welcome to the show.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Good to see all of you, and welcome to the show. And first and foremost, G. Wright, your incident was recent. First, I just want to ask you, first off, how are you doing, and how is your son doing?
It's been really difficult. So it's been very rattling, but we have an overwhelming amount of support from the community. So that's very helpful in healing, but it has been challenging. It was just a week and a few days ago. And
let's talk about that incident. Let's talk about what happened. You're at a pool. You're enjoying yourself with your son at a pool. Then what happens? Yeah, we hadn't swam since the pandemic. So we went to the pool to swim laps. And within minutes of being there, a white woman who was swimming in a lane between me and my son brashly said, I can't talk over her lane. I quickly asked the lifeguard if that was a rule. She said, no. I told the lady, we could switch lanes. I could accommodate her, but, I'm going to say some things to my son. It's just a matter of how many laps have you done? Not chit chat, just like a sentence or so. Yeah. And it led to an argument, and she started to tell the lifeguard she needed to do something about us. And at some point, she then is encouraging the lifeguard to call the police, and she's also threatening the lifeguard's job. So I got very upset, of course, when I heard we're in a pool, and I couldn't imagine that the police are being called on us. And right now, everyone, you're looking at body cam video. This is from the police who showed up there on the scene that particular day. And as you can see a little bit about what's going on. We also have more on this story on NBC6.com as well. But let's talk about that. Call the police. Call the police. Hold on. Call the police. Were you being violent? Were you doing? Did you threaten this woman's life? No danger, no emergency. Just I wanted to say a bother, and wanted to control our behavior and control us, but absolutely nothing. And I said to them, there's no reason to call the police at all. And when the police came, I said, I don't know why you guys would be here, but we were just pretty much
an inconvenience for her, and she wanted us, she wanted us to be taken care of,
And hold on, let's go back a minute. Your profession, you're an attorney?
I am, yes.
Oh, you're an attorney. So you happen to know the law a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And yet, you know the law a little bit, but I feel somewhat threatened. So I'm going to call the police on you because you don't agree with me.
Right.
And because I see you as a threat. Has anything like this ever happened to you before?
No, not to. I've had many issues with challenges to my belonging. But I haven't had an issue like this where, someone is calling the police on me when there's nothing. No one's ever called the police on me, and especially like when there's nothing that's dangerous occurring. So that was very disturbing, very disturbing. And when the police came, they had ordered everybody out of the pool before the police came. And when the police came, the woman didn't leave. She didn't leave when the pool staff ordered us all out. And when the police arrived, she still didn't get out of the pool. She was able to stay in the pool. And I know that me and my son would not be able to just disobey and stay in the pool. It would be another story.
Now, it's important to mention that we did reach out to the woman involved in this case, and we did not hear back. For all of you out there wondering, where is this woman? Why haven't we heard from this woman? But we did reach out to her. But of course, we didn't hear back. Okay, well, G. Wright, we're going to get back to you in just a moment. And again, it's just good to know that you and your son are doing okay.
Thank you.
Despite everything that you've gone through. But I have to move on to Roz Joseph. There was something that came on my timeline. Somebody actually tagged me in it. And I was shocked by what I saw happening. And I must say, Roz, I was impressed with your professionalism for as long as you could have been professional. But let's talk a little bit about what happened to you, because you live in Lake Worth, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you live in Lake Worth. So it looked like it was a nice day outside. When you what happened? What were you doing?
Literally, I had it's been a really challenging time at work. I've been doing a lot of training for our teams nationally. So I decided to run outside and do a quick bike ride before I had to come back in and get some work done. And I was literally taking one of my final laps around the lake, and this gentleman approached me. I noticed that he was kind of close to me as I was doing the ride. And my neighbors are usually very friendly, but they stopped me after why I was there and questioned me when I did not want to confirm that. I started videotaping because I thought that he was approaching me. And once I started videotaping, he did take a step back. But basically, as you can see from the video, indicated that I did not live there, or he didn't felt like I would have acted the way I was acting if I did indeed live in that neighborhood, in this neighborhood.
And so he approaches you. He approaches you and start asking you if you lived in this particular neighborhood.
Correct.
And he has his phone in hand and everything else. And basically, first and foremost, you said it right. You don't have to answer this man's questions. He's a complete stranger to you. But I could tell that he was even getting a little bit more upset because he's here badgering you on whether or not you live there, and because you wouldn't answer his questions.
I really felt like I didn't have a right. I didn't have to answer his questions. And for me, I did try to remain calm because my husband and I have talked about what happens if this actually happens in real life to us. And the things that we said was we try to maintain our calm and get it on camera because we don't know where it escalates. So you have a man coming at you. He could have stopped me at any point in our neighborhood when I was on the street, where there were others involved. If he felt like I was scoping garages and that much of a danger, where there were other people around that could have witnessed that. He waited till went around a corner of our lake where there aren't any homes. It's just trees. And that's where he decided to approach me at. And I was concerned because I was thinking, oh my God, I'm glad I didn't bring my kids with me. My nieces were recently in town. What if they had been walking? And at this point where I live, I'm also thinking, okay, if we call the sheriff's department, I need to be here when this happens. They need to be able to see what actually occurred because I don't want to bike away. And then they start thinking, oh, she's trying to run away or go high. Then I don't know how that situation ends up at the end of the day with them coming in, and especially with the picture that he painted of me.
Yeah, and you stayed there. You actually stayed there. Mm-hmm. You didn't leave, but you definitely had the smarts to pull out your phone and record what happened. at that moment. But then I started hearing a tone kind of change with him. And this is where the whole Karen thing comes into play and the whole race thing comes into play, because all of a sudden the questioning and the what he was saying to you, everything started to change a little bit. And then he said, speak English at one point.
Yeah, I think I uttered in Creole, I can't believe this is happening. And then he made his comment about speaking English, which I had been up to that point, which I think was part of the ignorance of that entire situation. And then you have incorrect language. But I do think it's telling, though, that, you immediately, when you have kind of no ground to stand on or no words or a good contention point, you turn to bullying and being condescending towards someone. And that's a lot of the what I've seen, especially when I started now looking at what's happening across the country more and more. People begin to be very condescending towards the victim, like they have the right to do that, and it starts shifting away from it being a policing situation to where I think they feel like they can intimidate you, as well as become more aggressive towards you, and then declare you the person as being the one who's aggressive, and your behavior is out of character, which is not the case in there.
And we're going to get a little bit more into what happened with that incident, a little back and forth there, because it was just interesting to hear what he said to police, by the way, when he called police, and some of the things that he said when he called police. Okay, Dr. Swain, I want to come over to you now. But first and foremost, I wanted to know, is there a definition for Karen? So I wanted to know if there was a definition. So I looked up Karen to see if there's a definition. And sure enough, there is a definition to Karen out there. Now, this is what I found in part on Wikipedia. Quote, a common stereotype is that of a white woman who uses her privilege to demand her own way at the expense of others, end quote. And we've heard that if it's not a woman, if it's a man, then it's Karen's cousin, it's Karen's brother. We've heard that in this particular instance with Roz, that's probably the case. But I have to ask you, Dr. Swain, what do you think when you hear about these incidents that are happening, not only here in South Florida, but across the country?
I think there's a very simple, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
I think there's a very simple definition that takes all of the glamour and gloss off of what you just described. It's called racist, because that is in fact what these folk are. A number of other words came to mind as I watched these incidents involving my sisters. These incidents were vulgar, they were appalling, they jeopardized lives. There is an assumption of criminality involved in it, a sense of injury and offense on their side for things that never happened. And I'm literally stunned at these kinds of aggressions that go on against our people. There are no other group of people in the United States that would tolerate these kinds of ongoing acts toward them, openly so, I might add. All kinds of settings, parks, malls, parking lots, all kinds of things. And I think these things are anti-American, to be frank. I need to add that I was also an attorney in this city. I have taught criminal and constitutional law. And when I listen to these things, I see the potential for danger in them. When the police is called on someone, they come almost with an assumption that some offense has occurred. And when you're talking about a person of color, there's a great body of research that talks about how from even elementary school, there is an assumption in the white population of criminality in Black people, regardless of their ages, regardless of their social standing, regardless of their levels of education. I just got on an elevator here in Vienna, Georgia, where I am. A couple of weeks ago, I was here for a funeral and got on an elevator with a lady, a non-Black person, let me just say. And the fear in her eyes was palpable because the elevator door closed with just the two of us in there. And I'm a man who holds 4 college degrees. I've written 6 books. and I'm watching somebody clinging to her purse as if I was about to pounce on her. These kinds of things work on the psyche. They work on one's sense of self-confidence. They hurt, they fear, and they ruin our ability to have logical conversations and practical conversations about race. Race is still one of those things that if you really want to ruin a party, just mention the word race, no matter where you are, and the party will die. But we have to grow up and be more mature as Americans, and we have to come to a point where we're able to have these conversations, because we are literally putting the lives of children, women, men of all ages, of all social standing, and not just Black people. This is happening to Latino people. It's happening to Asian people. It's happening to people of color, and it is offensive, and it is un-American, and it harkens. It brings my mind back to that phrase about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You're interfering with our ability to do just that. We're not bothering anybody. We simply want to live. We're trying to live a high quality life. Both these women that are on the show tonight are highly educated. They're accomplished people, and they should not have to be exposed to these kinds of things.
And Dr. Swain, it's interesting, though, because thanks to social media, we're able to expose the Karens out there. If it wasn't for social media, if it wasn't for technology now, it would be my word against Karen.
Just add one note.
And I could wind up dead, by the way.
Can I just add one note on the Karen business? To call them Karens almost trivializes the act that they do. Because these acts could have cost either one of these ladies their lives or their reputations. And it happens. And to call them Karens on the one hand is kind of, funny. But at the same time, what they're doing is life-threatening. It jeopardizes people's standing in the community. And like I said, these things leave scars. One of the things that I really would like the community to know is that when something like this happens to a Black person, it is never forgotten. You don't walk away from this experience and it goes out of your mind. When you're with your child and you're concerned that somebody is confronting you in the presence of your child, treating you in a way that is pejorative and demeaning as an attorney, that doesn't go away. Or when you're taking a leisurely ride and trying to return to work and that you happen to speak Creole, make someone say to you, speak English, or as others have said on other occasions, go back to wherever you come from. These things don't go away. They stick in the mind, they stick in the spirit, they injure, and that's what they're meant to do. They're a form of terrorism, if you will. They're not the extreme forms of lynching and all of that kind of thing. Microaggression, micro-terrorism that cause Black people to be cautious when they're in certain environments. And it happens to us professionally everywhere we go.
Everywhere we go, and based on the color of our skin, it's something that has been going on for decades. This is something that hasn't just started happening, and it goes back to breathing while Black. It goes back to swimming while Black. It goes back to biking in a neighborhood, my neighborhood, while Black. It goes back to running while Black. As you know, as our producer Denise just pointed out, it goes all the way back to Emmett Till, and it goes once again to George Floyd, which has again brought about this conversation, but also magnified what is happening in our country. So I want to bring the question back to you, G. I want to ask you, you went back to that swimming pool recently. What happened?
Yes, thanks to the organization I'm a part of, Diversity in Aquatics, and the community, a swim-in protest was organized, and a week, nearly to the hour, I was back there with my son, and there was a beautiful opportunity to get back in the pool. I had a knot in my stomach. That's my son there, not here, but I had a knot in my stomach. To return, a part of me felt like I would never want to go back there, but being able to go while I'm embraced by the community was very empowering and very healing. So it was wonderful. We had about 100 people came out during the morning. We had some excellent speeches by community leaders and leaders in the swim community, and sharing a lot about that there's been discrimination in aquatics throughout the history of America for Black people. So this is consistent with what has been happening historically. And hopefully it brings light on this in a way that it can end, that we had people with signs, and I saw someone said, your spaces are our spaces too. And that's really important for people to remember.
How much has this hurt you?
Oh, it's devastating. It's devastating. It's devastating, and it's particularly hurtful because my son, who is an adult, he's a young man, was there with me. But the fact that, and I talked about this at the swim, and the fact that both of us were rendered powerless in front of each other, we both tried to negotiate with the police, was particularly painful. That, whatever he said or I said, it didn't matter, and that lady got to stay in the pool. And
eventually, though, she was suspended from that pool, correct?
She's suspended. We heard for 3 days. We really feel she should be banned from all Fort Lauderdale pools. She shouldn't be able to return to these pools. She made us unsafe. She required us, the police, to be called when it was an argument at a pool, that started about me talking, and her, just wanting to control our behavior. So no, she shouldn't be able to return to a pool.
It's interesting. You talked about controlling the conversation, especially when you call the police. So that brings me back over to Roz, because when someone calls the police, you can kind of control the conversation, the narrative that you wanted to go in. So when the gentleman called the police, I don't even know if I really want to call him a gentleman, but when he called the police on Roz, he mentioned the fact that she could be riding around in the neighborhood looking allegedly for open garages, to try to go in and steal something and everything else. Roz, that shocked me. You got all this stuff on camera, by the way, on your phone. That shocked me.
It shocked me as well. And that's when I really realized I can't go anywhere. I've got to stay here to be able to, because if I go and I leave that area, I could be putting myself in danger. So eventually when he moved farther away, as advised by the 911, I think, operator, as I came out of the neighborhood, he continued to follow me. And my neighbor actually had to verify that I lived here. As I was riding around, he was asking her, my husband confirmed that for him as well. And that's when he decided to cancel his call. But we actually called the police ourselves because we wanted it documented. And that's when they told me that there was no law in place. There was nothing legally that they could do in terms of approaching him or having a conversation with him. And what stuck with me a couple of days after was the fact that, okay, this is going, around on social media. But I'm the one who's kind of stuck in my home. And then it's not to say that I could not continue to go outside, but I think Dr. Swan mentioned, it does change kind of your perception of what you thought you built as your safe place in your home, in your neighborhood, in your community. And it no longer feels that way for you. So for me, participating a lot in working with community organizations here locally, I've built a really good network of very supportive folks that rallied around me. And one of those is Carla Erskine. She's a local attorney here who's been kind of helping me navigate. I did lodge a formal complaint against the Homeowners Association, whose attorney has responded to him directly as well. They gave me an update there. But I think the call to action is more to that, where we really need to ensure that these folks are held accountable for their actions, because at the end of the day, that incident could have cost my life. It could have cost my husband's life, because he was very upset. And, I'm trying to calm him down, because I said, if the police come here, it's not going to end well for us, because he's going to say, if he's in fear for his life, he's the one who made the initial call, whatever the case may be. If something like that had happened to my teenage nephews who are 6 foot tall, and they didn't feel like they needed to respond to him, what picture would have been painted of them? So I think it's very important that we go to our local officials. I'm very glad to say that one of our local county commissioners reached out directly to me regarding this incident, and I do plan on meeting all of my local county commissioners and really asking them you know, because this isn't the first incident that's happened, and I'm sure it won't be the last, but there needs to be accountability for those folks that go around and feel like they can police folks with their privilege, and I don't think it's right. We literally, 3 weeks ahead, prior to what happened to me, the same incident happened to a couple of teenage girls in Wellington, Florida.
Oh, wow.
And this gentleman followed them in a car. You know, it wasn't until they got to their grandfather's house.
Yes, we did roll that story too as well. I remember that story. We ran that story, and that was very powerful until the grandfather came out and he had to confront the man that was following them. But Roz, I have to ask you the same question that I asked G. I have to ask you, how has this impacted you as a Black woman? How much has this hurt you inside?
I think I go between being very angry and then just being very frustrated. And, you know, that confidence is taking a dip, right? Because, you know, it doesn't matter what you do, how hard you work. You try to protect your children. You try to do the best for yourself and your community. And I do a lot of work in the community just so that, you know, you can have that positive image and show us in a different light.
Doesn't matter.
Paint your narrative, but someone can go along, and like you mentioned earlier, Mr. Strader, they can come along in 2 minutes and damage your entire reputation and the work that you've worked so hard in the community. For myself, I was able to kind of try to compose myself for as long as I could, but you know, what if I was having a real bad day and I just didn't want to be polite, or did not, you know, have my, what would have happened there? What could that have escalated to? So there's nothing I feel right now that's within my power to be able to control that narrative, and I don't like that. I want to know that just like he has the right to call the police and report something, that when I call the police, that there's something that can be done about it, because there's a law. There's something that's written on a piece of paper that holds him accountable for, you know, making one-off decisions to decide to use his privilege to do whatever he cares to do. There's nothing there for me, I feel, in terms, I don't feel protected. As a taxpayer, as a homeowner, I do not feel protected, and that's not right, because I pay the same taxes that he does.
Amen. And Dr. Swain, I got to ask you, after listening to G. Wright and Roz there about how they feel and what they're going through, what advice do you have for someone in this situation that's going through this, that's feeling this?
Well, first of all, there is a law against this. Making false statements to the police is against the law. And that's in fact what these people are doing. They're making false police reports, and again, jeopardizing people's lives. But the first thing I would recommend is exactly what the attorney did, which was go back to the place. Don't allow yourself to be hemmed in and limited in the way you live and in what you do because of something that people do. We have to face these things. They are part of the life that we lead as people of color. And notice, by the way, the diversity of the group that you have here tonight. We're all people of color. We're all Black, but we all have a sort of a different historical ethnicity to us. And people kind of assume that we're all monolithic. And that's part of the problem of what we're dealing with, is that we're not all one type of Black people. We're not all African Americans. We're, you know, there are Afro-Latinos in our community. There are Haitian people in our community. There are people from the Caribbean in our community. There are Africans in our community. We're not a monolithic people. So I suggest, one, facing it, two, not allowing it to limit the quality of your life. Three, I do think whenever possible that you ought to make sure that that person has a consequence, because one of the reasons that this continues to happen is that because there is no consequence for people. And I hope that the politicians who are listening, you know, just as some years ago, they put out these crazy laws about young Black men wearing their pants down low. If they could find the energy to do that, they should be able to find the energy to deal with things like this, which can cost someone their life. Just think about it. Trayvon Martin died doing a very benign thing, walking and eating. Other Black folk have been confronted, and these two ladies, swimming, bike riding. These are not aggressive or threatening activities. These are the kinds of things that normal people of other races and ethnicities do. And the question we have to ultimately get to, the question is, why do our normal life activities create fear anger, insecurity, aggression in other people. And those are not questions that Black people can answer for them. They have to answer those things for themselves. Racism is not an inborn behavior. It is a learned behavior. And it's learned in families, it's learned in communities, it's reinforced in families. And it'll take those same families to unlearn this behavior and to teach proper reactions and to teach respect for life. Martin Luther King said years and years ago, the richer we have become materially, the poorer we have become morally and spiritually. We have learned to fly the air like birds, to swim the sea like fish, but we have yet to learn the simple art of living together as brothers. And I pray that as a community, that we'll learn to live together. Miami is a very beautiful place. It's a very vibrant place. Of South Florida, very vibrant, a lot of diversity here, wonderful quality of life. But all that means nothing when you have an encounter like this, because again, it spoils everything that you've tried to build. It hurts you down in your spirit. But the beautiful thing is that people of faith, I hope you are praying for our community. I hope you're encouraging people who encounter these kinds of things to go back out and be strong in the face of it. But I also pray for the safety of my fellow citizens who have to deal with this, because this is very, very dangerous.
It sure is. Dr. Swain, thank you so much. And we are out of time, but before we sign off, we want to remind you that this Saturday is officially Virginia Key Beach Day. Speaking of swimming, the park was founded 75 years ago as Miami's only beach for people of color, including its Black residents. Before beaches were integrated, it was a favorite getaway and an after-church gathering place for Black people all across South Florida. It has incredible amenities there, including a carousel and a train for children. The 75th anniversary happens this Saturday from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock at 4020 Virginia Beach Drive in Miami. If you have never been, I suggest you go check it out. It is a beautiful site there. So much rich history at Virginia Key Beach. And I want to thank all of our guests. I want to thank you so much for joining us. I know this is a very difficult time for many of you, but we stand with you. We stand with you. G. Wright, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Roz, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Dr. Swain, thank you so much for your intelligence, your wisdom, my brother. We really appreciate you. And of course, as always, I'm always going to call on you for these conversations as well. I want to thank all of you and all of you that are watching out there. Let me know what you thought about our conversation. Comment. Don't be afraid to do so. Let us know what you think. And be a part of this conversation, because it starts with the conversation first, so we can begin the healing process. Reach out to me at JawanNBC6 on Instagram or JawanNBC6 on Twitter. Be sure to make it a great evening.
God bless you.